Hello everyone! Have you done a qualitative research and your defense date is near? This video will help you prepare for it. This contains commonly asked questions in qualitative research defense with sample answers. First, when your panel says, tell us about your research. This is easy to answer. The gist of your research is your abstract. Therefore, I'm not going to provide a sample answer anymore. Now the panel asks, why did you choose to do this study? Here you have to show that there's a need for this study. First, there is an issue or problem that can be addressed by the study. So you may answer this way. This study is about the lived experiences of women who have been raped. I have chosen this topic because I recognize the need to conduct this study based on the following facts. First, a significant number of women have experienced rape. Worldwide, that's 15 million women aged 15 to 19. In the Philippines, one female is raped every hour. And we're talking only about reported rapes. Human rights groups estimate that only 1 out of 3 rape cases are reported, and if their estimate is accurate, then that would mean that worldwide approximately 45 million women aged 15 to 19 have been raped. And take note, that does not include those who are below 15 or above 19. So the number of women who have experienced rape is huge. Next, you have to show that there is a gap in literature that this study can fill. So you can continue. Despite this huge number of women who have been raped, previous studies have not fully explored the phenomenon. The information that is available focuses on statistics on women who have been raped, including demographic characteristics and association with subsequent problems such as depression, suicide, and substance abuse. There's very little literature on the lived experiences of women who have been raped, and there's even less literature that details how women who have been raped navigate their day-to-day lives in the Philippine setting. Next, you can point out the potential benefits of the study to the profession, agencies, groups, and individuals. This is found in your significance of the study. So just present a summary of the significance of the study. Next, if this is applicable, you may have a personal reason for doing this research and share that personal reason. For example, your interest or your passion. For instance, you may state, I strongly support women empowerment and I believe that rape is a disempowering act. I wanted to know if my belief was true. Why did you choose this design? First, you have to show that it is appropriate for the research objective or problem in terms of your choice of qualitative design instead of quantitative. So you can state, first, why did I choose a qualitative design instead of a quantitative one? A quantitative approach focuses on numbers, and the essence of human experience cannot be reduced to numbers. I chose a qualitative approach because it allows for a deeper understanding of the phenomenon of rape experience that would not have been possible in a quantitative research. Second, why did I choose a phenomenological design? Because it is the type of qualitative research that deals with experiences and meanings. I wanted to understand what it was like to experience what they experienced. That is, to view the experience of navigating one's life after rape through the eyes of the participants. Tell us about your population. When this is asked, then you would have to enumerate and justify both your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Sample answer. This study included women who, 1, have been raped, and 2, the rape should have happened at least a year ago. The reason for the first inclusion criteria is obvious. They cannot share the rape experience unless they have been raped. For the second inclusion criterion, I set this because I wanted to understand their experiences beyond the immediate period after rape. For the exclusion criterion, there was only one, and that is being a minor. So those who were less than 18 years old were excluded from the study. My reason for this was to simplify consent taking, especially since I plan to conduct several interview sessions per participant. Describe your sample. Here you have to describe how the sample was chosen, the type of sampling that was used, describe how the sample was recruited, and indicate and justify your sample size. This is an example of an answer. I plan to use purposive sampling and accessing the participants to a non-government organization, an NGO. that offered services to women who experienced violence, including those who were raped. But the NGO backed out. So I ended up using referral and voluntary sampling. I originally had 8 participants. 4 participants were professional referrals. They were receiving counseling services from 2 different teachers. The counseling services were unstructured and sporadic. 2 participants were referred by another participant. The 3 of them were drugged and gang raped in a party. I personally knew 2 participants who volunteered to join the study. From the original 8 participants, the sample size was reduced to 6 when 2 participants withdrew during a member check. The ones who withdrew were 1 participant each from the referrals of the 2 teachers. I stopped looking for more participants when I judged that I have reached saturation. That is, when the data were just repeating itself and there was no more new data coming in. I also want to point out that unintentionally, my sample turned out to have maximum variation in the sense that they varied in terms of present age, the age when the rape happened, civil status, sexual orientation, educational attainment, and whether or not the participant has filed a case against the rapist. Therefore, the sample could allow me to capture diverse perspectives. I tried looking for a negative case who could possibly have a very different experience from the rest, and this was someone in whom the rape has resulted to a pregnancy. But I could not find such a participant, so I'm just considering that as a limitation of my study. By the way, you can further describe your sample by giving a brief description of each participant. Make sure that you do not give any clues to their identities, however. An example of such a description is: Participant A is a 19-year-old college student. At age 6, she was repeatedly raped by a middle-aged neighbor to which her care was entrusted by her parents whenever they went to work. What method did you use to collect data? Describe the method that you use and justify your choice of method. Sample answer: I used unstructured interview. I started the interview with, "You said that you were raped. Tell me about it." Although I wanted to focus my study on the experiences of women who have been raped, therefore, the experiences in the aftermath of the rape experience, I started with this statement because I know that the rape experience cannot be isolated from its aftermath. Also, I offered psychological counseling to the participants, and in psychological counseling, there's a need for the clients to tell their story and even to bring out and experience the feelings that have been bottled up inside them. Therefore, I started with the rape experience. Describe your data gathering procedure. So list down the steps and describe each step as needed. Sample answer. After my proposal was approved, I submitted it to the X University Research Ethics Committee, which approved it. I then went to the head of the blank NGO, who had earlier assured me to act as an intermediary to allow me access to their clients. But I was told that the people in their central office changed their mind and that I could no longer access their clients. I asked help from persons I knew if they knew anyone who met my research criteria. To those who knew potential participants, we followed this procedure for referral. They got a preliminary consent from the potential participants wherein they gave background information about me, explained what the research was about, and what it would entail, including the mechanics to ensure the ethical conduct of the study, and my offer of psychological counseling for those who wanted to have it. Once the potential participants gave their consent, they were introduced to me and I took over, first by getting a written consent, then setting an appointment for the first interview, and carrying out the interviews. All of the participants consented to audio recording but none consented to video recording. How did you manage and analyze your data? So list down the steps and describe each step as needed. Sample answer. First is data management. As soon as I was able, I transcribed the audio recording using Listener AI, an app that converts speech to text. I then proofread the transcription and inserted nonverbal cues that I observed in the participants, such as laughing, frowning, pauses, etc. I then formatted it to a transcript file that contained the following information: participants' code. I used letters such as participant A, participant B, and C, date and time of the interview number, first, second, etc. for that participant, and a description of the interview setting. I then created three columns. The narrowest column at the left contains the timestamp of the audio. The broadest middle column contains the transcription, and the column at the right was left blank. This will later on contain the quotes or the phrases that summarize what the participant said in that particular verbalization. After data management is data analysis. I type the codes on the spaces in the third column. I then copy-pasted the codes onto a blank sheet and grouped similar codes together. This step enabled me to identify the themes. I looked for patterns such as which of the themes were similar, and this allowed me to cluster them into broader themes. I then studied these broader themes to determine how they are linked to each other and use arrows to show the progression from one broader theme to the next. How did you establish trustworthiness? Give a brief definition of each and discuss how you establish credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. Sample answer. Credibility means that the data collected is accurate and representative of the phenomenon under study. I achieved this through prolonged engagement with my participants. I conducted an average of 3 to 4 interviews per participant, each interview session lasting for about an hour. This number of interviews was needed because first, I was a stranger and I could not be trusted immediately. And second, the stories they told brought so much pain that most of them could handle only a little unburdening per session. Credibility was also established through member checks, wherein I showed the participants the themes that I have identified, and they agreed that these themes represented their experiences. Transferability is the extent to which the findings are applicable to other situations. This is not the purpose of qualitative research, so my only responsibility related to this is to provide thick descriptions, or meaning enough information to allow the readers to judge whether they can apply the findings to a situation that they have in mind. These thick descriptions may be found in my detailed description of the setting of the study, the presentation of the relevant characteristics of the participants, and the inclusion of relevant context in the presentation of the themes. Dependability is an in-depth description of the study procedures to allow the study to be replicated. To do this, I created an audit trail wherein I wrote down the detail of the procedures that I followed in the conduct of the study. This included changes from previous plans and the reason for these changes. For instance, in this study, the major items included in audit trail were the shift to referral sampling, looking for and not being able to find the negative taste that I wanted, how I decided that saturation was achieved and that it was time to stop data collection, deciding what to do when two participants withdrew from the study, how teams were identified, grouped into broader teams, and regrouped again. Confirmability refers to steps that ensure that the data and findings are not due to researcher bias. I achieved this by initially writing a researcher's background to identify my biases. I further established this by including in my audit trail the procedure of how I derive the themes from the data. Lastly, I was able to achieve this by conducting a member check wherein I asked the participants if the themes were congruent with their experiences. How did you ensure that the conduct of the study was ethical? Here you have to describe how the study was conducted in an ethical manner. Sample answer. As I have mentioned earlier, the identity of the potential participant was not divulged to me immediately by the person who referred her. Instead, a preliminary consent was taken first. When I finally met the participant, I still got a written consent. This was an informed consent because I explained to her what participation in the study would entail on her part, that she could withdraw anytime, that her autonomy and privacy will be respected because she can choose what information to disclose or not to disclose. The participant's privacy was further respected through the safekeeping of the transcript files so that no one except me and my advisor would have access to them. The participant's anonymity was protected through the use of participants' codes such as participant A, B, or C instead of their names, and by seeing to it that even if I strove to provide thick descriptions, I also saw to it that I did not include any information that could give a clue to their identities. This was done both in the transcript file and in the research report. In the spirit of reciprocity, I offered psychological counseling, and in the spirit of justice and fair treatment, this offer was extended to all participants. In fact, the two participants who withdrew from the study continued with their counseling sessions after their withdrawal. Lastly, I took care to conduct the study in such a way that trustworthiness was established so that it would maintain a high level of scientific and social value. What problems did you encounter in the conduct of your study? If this question is asked, then you will have to describe the problems that you have encountered, discuss the actions that you took to solve the problems and what were the outcomes of these actions, and discuss the impact of these problems on the results of the study. Sample answer. The first problem that I encountered was how I would get participants. This was resolved when people I knew referred potential participants. Then one participant referred two. And finally, when two women I knew volunteered themselves to be participants. The next problem was the withdrawal of two participants from the study. Of course, I could not be compelled to stay, and it would be unethical to use the data that I have collected from them, so I discarded this data. Fortunately, the teams remained the same because there was no team that was exclusively derived from their data. Although I have to admit that the data would have been richer if they did not withdraw. The third problem was my inability to find a particular negative case, a woman whose rape led to a pregnancy. It is very likely that this negative case would have several experiences that are different from those of the rest. Her perspective would probably also be different from the other participants. But I have to accept that I could not find that participant, so I have just included it as a limitation of my study. What are the results of the study? Here you have to discuss the categories and themes that emerge from the data and include samples of participants' verbalizations. Sample answer. Three broad themes emerge from the data. These are crashing, getting up, and moving forward. Crashing refers to the experiences immediately to the rape when the woman is at a very low level. This includes the following themes: feeling numb. As participant A verbalized, I was surprised that I did not feel anything after I was raped. My mind was working well so that I was able to go to the police station to file a complaint. But it seemed as though my emotions were turned off. No feelings at all. Second, feeling shame. Participant B felt that she has been violated and compared herself to damaged goods. Participant D said that as though everyone knew what happened. Third, blaming self. Participant E said, I invited rape because I dressed sexily. It was just that I was so proud of my body, but look at what happened. Participant A said, it's my fault. I already knew that that street was deserted at the time of the night, but I still walked there alone, just because I wanted to save a few pesos of taxi fare. 4. Feeling angry. This anger is directed to themselves, which is related to self-blame. It's also directed at the unfairness of why others were lucky not to go to the rape experience. As participant A continues, why me? So many others pass through that deserted street and they don't get raped. Why me in particular? It's not fair. I hate the world. But for the rapist, there is a special intensity of anger, and this anger is associated with the desire to torment the rapist. So as participant B states, I imagine me catching him and tying him up near an ant's colony, smearing him with honey and watching the ants feast on him. That would just be the beginning. There would be a lot more. Fifth is being terrified. Participant F states, I did not want the lights on because I felt so vulnerable. He might be able to see me even though I have 3 layers of curtains on my window. I did not want the lights off either. He may suddenly jump from the shadows and rape me again. 6 is mental undoing, wherein the woman tries to wish away the reality of the experience and bargains with God to erase the experience. Participant C says, I pray God, I will be good, I will do anything that you want. Just let me go to sleep, and then when I wake up, I will find out that this has just been a bad dream. Please. How do you interpret your findings? So discuss your findings in relation to congruence with or contradiction of theories and other studies, implications and limitations of your study. Sample answer. The findings of the study are congruent with the stages of grieving proposed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Women have been raped pass through the stages of grieving identified by Kubler-Ross, which are denial, anger, bargaining, despair, and acceptance. However, there are additional elements in experience of women who have been raped. These are shame and intense fear. What are the implications of this? Just like any grieving person, women who have been raped suffered a loss of their intact self-concept, loss of trust, and loss of their belief that the world is good and just. But the findings also reveal that women who have been raped have the potential to heal, survive, and even triumph over the crushing experience of being raped. So what is implied here is that they need support. Support coming from significant others and professionals can be a game changer in the woman's escape from victimhood. With regard to the limitations of the study, the findings do not present a comprehensive picture of lived experiences of women who have been raped because it excluded minors. Also, none of the participants became pregnant as a result of the rape. What are your conclusions? Now state the conclusions derived from the findings. Sample answer. The central theme that can be called from the data is that the rape experience changes women for the rest of their lives. Women who have been raped embark on a journey to survival. Women's support systems serve as their co-travelers in their journey. Everyone's journey is filled with roadblocks, but their outcome differs. Some are able to overcome and survive. Some do not just survive but triumph. Some do not regain the potential they once had. However, as long as the woman is alive, the journey continues. What are your recommendations? State your recommendations, making sure that these recommendations are based on the findings and the conclusions. Sample answer. Because of the role of support systems as co-travelers in their journey after the rape, I recommend the education of support systems, both professional and personal, to improve their abilities to offer support to women who have been raped. But before the personal support systems, such as family members, can be educated, their psychological needs should be met first because they were also impacted by the rape experience. Second, I recommend a recovery program for women who have been raped that has the following characteristics. First, individualize. Second, goes beyond the immediate post-rape period. And third, focuses on the potential for survival and triumph over the experience of rape instead of emphasizing victimhood. And lastly, involves a women's personal support system. Third recommendation for future studies, a qualitative research without the limitations of the study, meaning a study that includes participants who were excluded from the study or who were not included because no such participants can be found.